Welcome, my name is Alexandria, and I'm excited to introduce you to the Pattern Seasonal Planner. So this is a tool that I designed initially for myself with a framework based on 4 pillar areas. And those areas are prayer, our relationship with God, person, our own mental, emotional, physical well-being, people, our relationships, so family, friendships, community, and then lastly, profession, the work and the mission that we've been entrusted with. And so I developed this framework as I observed different women throughout my life who were intentional in each of these areas. And their intentionality allowed them to experience flourishing. So them getting to the destination that they desired to get to wasn't by accident. It was by a consistent practice and focus on what God had called them to and who God had called them to be. And I wanted to apply those same principles and practices in my own life. And so I developed this planner. It's not a quick fix, but it is a practice. And I do believe, and I've experienced in my own life, that being intentional with what God values for us and aligning our time with those values allows us over time to experience flourishing. So let's jump in. So the Pattern Seasonal Planner is more than just a calendar. It's a tool to help you cultivate rhythms that support your flourishing. So here we go. Here, the first page, you have a place to write your name, your season, and this could be season of life or the season of the year, and then the year. And then when you open it up, you have a letter from me. And then here you have the framework. And I love this because it points to the value of the gospel informing every area of our life for God's glory. And here you also have the 4 pillar areas. Then you have the building process. And when I say building, I mean building a life that you feel like is aligned with what you value most. So this process is to dream, which you will cast vision and focus on and think about what is important to you. And then design, where you'll create your own pattern of life that's suited for the season that you're in. And then lastly, you'll build and cultivate consistently a life of prayer, purpose, and presence. So in the dream phase, you have questions that speak to who you are, what your strengths are, what brings you joy. And then you have a place for you to assess these different 4 pillar areas. And when you assess, I want you to think about what is going well and maybe what needs some improvement. So what are some praises in this area? What are things that you're thankful for? As well as the things that are difficult that you want to bring before the Lord. And then here you have a space to create a vision board, and you can collect images or words that speak to how you want to be intentional throughout the season. Next, you have a place to put or pick a word that really speaks to what you want to cultivate in each pillar area. And the way I like to think about this is planting a seed or an intention. And that's what your purpose, word, or phrase will be. So in the area of prayer, for example, you could write, you want to cultivate connection with the Lord. In the area of person, it could be, you want to experience well-being with people. You could say, I know my word for this season was fellowship, just wanting to connect more intentionally with other people in our community. And profession, it could be courage. So you can pick a word for each one of these pillar areas that define how you want to be intentional throughout the season. And then before we get to the doing of those words or the practicing of those words, it's important for us to reflect on what needs to be pruned. Oftentimes we can want to take action when we haven't considered what are the things that need to be taken away. So in this section, I asked, what are your distractions? What might need to be decluttered? And that could be internal things that need to be decluttered or external. And then lastly, what can you delegate? So what can somebody else do that you have on your plate that you don't need to do? So considering these things really allows us the space to be able to move forward and cultivate the things that matter. And then here you have where you put it all together to develop your pattern of life. So So you'll put your purpose word for each pillar area, as well as any daily, weekly, or monthly actions that will help you cultivate that word. So think about this as practices that will support you flourishing in these different areas. And so it really, again, allows our practices to align with what we say is important and what we do on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. And so that is the first section of the planner. So in this phase, you'll begin the daily practice of building a life of prayer, purpose, and presence. And this is how you'll first prioritize, then plan, and then prepare. So these 3 steps you'll apply to weekly planning as well as daily planning. So here you have an example of a weekly spread. And then here you have an example of a daily spread. And I'll show you these up close so you can get a visual. So this is the daily page, and as you see, it's undated. So you would put the day and then the date. And here you'll see a space for each one of these 4 pillar areas. And what I love to share is it's not a box to be checked, but it's a space to be held, and a space that is held for the things that truly matter to you. So for each day, you put in one thing that you would like to practice for that day in each pillar area. And then that is prioritizing. So you're thinking ahead of time about what is most important, and you are setting an intention for that thing. And then you go from there to step 2, which is plan. And here you'll put each of those things and you'll give them a place to live in your day. So it's not enough to just set the intention. You need to have a plan for when you'll carry it out. And that's planning. And then lastly, you want to prepare. You want to think about what do I need, or how do I set myself up for success? And that is the daily page. And in addition to that, also in the front, you have your monthly section, and there's 3 of these spreads to cover 3 months throughout the season. And then also in the planner, you have other tools to support you, which are this prayer practice guide. And this just is a guide to help you as you spend time with God each day, as well as celebrating holidays or special occasions. You have a space down here to write a seasonal menu. There's also a space for your weekly time blocks if you want to sketch that out, seasonal rhythms and rituals. And then you have a habit tracker. So those other things that you want to be intentional about, it could be drinking more water, it could be the practice of painting, whatever it is that floats your boat that you want to be intentional about. You have a space for that as well. And so that is an overview of the Pattern Seasonal Planner. So I look forward to seeing how this tool supports you in your journey of flourishing.